Hey, first grade friends, it's Miss Plowman again. I want to spend a few minutes to do another lesson with you today. Hope you're having a great day. Our lesson today has to be about this. I can retell a story and describe the characters, setting, and events using details. And we're going to talk about what each one of these mean and why they're important. Okay? Before we do that, let's talk about some things that we need to review. First thing is this one. When you're reading a story, we said the characters are usually the people or animals in the story. Okay, the characters are usually the people or animals that are in a story. And we also previously learned about this one. Setting is where and when the story takes place, where it happens and when it happens. Okay, the setting is where and when it takes place. Events. What are events? The events is everything that happens in a story. What happens in a story? From the beginning, which means the first part, to the middle part, to the end or the last part. Especially when we're talking about a fiction story, which is fake or make-believe. So the events are what happens. Everything from the beginning, middle, to the end in a story. It's very important when you're reading a fiction or fake make-believe story that you read it in order from beginning to middle to end so that your story makes sense when you read it. Okay, that's very important. Also, we need to talk about details. What are details? Details are specific things that happen that help tell the events in the story. All the specific things that happen that help tell the events we call details. Okay, details. These two kind of go together, problem and solution. A lot of fiction stories that are fake or make-believe have problems in them and solution, and they kind of go together. The problem over here is something wrong that's happening in a story. There's something wrong happening in a story. And usually at the end, we have what we call the solution. That's how the problem is solved, and it's usually at the end of a story. How do we take care and fix the problem? We do with a solution. It's usually at the end. So the problem is what's wrong in the story. The solution is how it's solved or how they fix the problem, and it's usually at the end. These two usually go together. Okay? All right, so one thing that we use to help us learn and to remember the important parts of character, setting, events, and problem and solution is what we call the 5-finger retell. On a glove, we have 5 fingers, and on each finger, we have one of those things to help us to remember the important parts. Right here, we have a castle. A castle helps me to remember the setting or where and when the story happens and takes place. The Mickey Mouse helps me to remember what we call the character, right? If you said character, you said that right. The characters we said are usually the people or animals that are in the story. This one looks like a cloud, helps me to remember the problem that's happening in the story. The problem is what's wrong that's happening. And then I want to skip this one just for a second and come back to it. This one is a Band-Aid on the thumb. Usually when you get hurt, you use a Band-Aid to help fix your scratch or what's wrong on your leg if you fall and hurt yourself. Okay, so this is the solution, how we fix and solve our problem that's happening of what's wrong. It's a solution, how we solve it. And then the last finger here, which we come back to, is our pointer finger, which is the events. Events, we said, was all what happens in the story from beginning, middle to end. B is beginning, the first part, M is middle, and then the E is end, which is your last part of the story. So we read a fiction story, which is our fake make-believe story. It's important to read it from beginning, middle to end when you talk about your events so that your story makes complete sense. Okay? So what I need to do is I want to do a practice activity with you. I'm going to read you this fiction make-believe story. It's called It Is Too Hot. I want you to listen to what I read to you, listen to the story, And after we read it, we're going to talk about the 5 important parts on our 5-finger retell to help us remember what's important. Okay? Is everybody ready for the story? Okay, has everybody got their good listening ears on today? Okay. Let's read it and see what happens. Okay? It is too hot. So remember we said the exclamation point here at the end, we've talked about punctuation means we read it with strong feeling. It is too hot. Okay. We can see it's fiction. It's not real because of the characters. We know that they don't really dress up like people, do they? Okay, let's see what happens. It is too hot. It is too hot to ride, said Elephant. It is too hot to play, said Elephant. It is too hot to swing, said Elephant. It is too hot to hop, said Elephant. It is too hot to walk, said Elephant. I think it's about too hot to do much of anything, don't you? It is too hot to climb, said Elephant. It is too hot to slide, said Elephant. It is not too hot to swim, said Elephant. Okay. So that was a short story, wasn't it? All right. Think about what Miss Plummer just read to you in that story. Let's take what we learned in the story or what we heard and let's apply it to our glove, which is our 5 important parts of our 5-finger retell. Good readers, what they do is they're able to read a story and they're able to go back and think about the make-believe or fiction story that they've read to do what we call the 5-finger retell. That helps us to remember the 5 important parts that we've read. The setting, the characters, the problem, the events of what happened, and then the solution at the end. Okay? So let's start here with our setting. In the story, think about what was the setting? Where and when did the story take place? We can look at the pictures to help us remember that, can't we? So if I look in my story, let's do the where first. Where were they? I can look at the first few pages and see that they were outside. Maybe out in a forest, maybe somewhere where there's lots of trees and lots of bushes and things. So we could say outside. And when? I see a sun in those pictures, don't you? When do you usually see the sun? What part of day? Usually in the daytime, the afternoon time, don't we? So we could say that the setting, when, during the daytime, and where, somewhere outside, maybe in a forest or somewhere where we said all the trees were. So when and where, outside on a sunny day in the afternoon. The characters, who were the characters? Who were the characters? That would be the animals or people that are in the story usually. So I see Elephant and his friends, the monkeys, don't you? And I also see in the picture the zebras. There's 2 of his friends that are zebras on the bike. So we could add them to our character list too, couldn't we? So that's our characters. That's this one. Then we go to this one. The problem. The problem? What's wrong in the story? In the story, think about that. What was wrong that was happening in the story? It kept telling us over and over and over. It was too hot. If you said that, you got that right. So the problem was it was too hot to do any of those things in the story that they kept mentioning. Too hot to ride, too hot to walk, climb. It was too hot. And we're going to come back to this one. We go to this one, we have the solution. The solution is usually at the end, we said, and it tells how to solve the problem. How was the problem fixed? If the problem was it was too hot, what was the solution? The solution was at the end, they all were hot and went swimming. It was not too hot to swim. So that was our solution. They cooled off by going swimming in the pool of water, didn't they? So we call that the solution. Okay, how the problem was solved. And then the last finger here with your letters BME stands for beginning, middle, and end. We call this your events. We said the events was everything that happened in the story. When you're reading a make-believe story called a fiction story, it's very important that we read the story in order from beginning, middle to end so that it makes sense. That's why that's important. I'm going to go and think about the beginning. And if you hear, boys and girls, the word beginning, it's going to mean the first part of the story. So I'm going to turn to the first part. I can go back and see that at the beginning, Elephant said it was too hot to ride. So they could not ride their bikes because it was just too hot. Then we go to the middle part for events. Now, one way that you can find the middle part is that I can look at the staples in the middle part. The middle part, it was too hot to hop. Too hot to hop, to play hopscotch. And then the end part, the last part, the very last part, the end of the events. Oh, they went swimming. It was not too hot to swim. That was also part of our solution to the problem. Okay? So this is very important, guys. This will help you when you are doing your reading groups this year with your teachers, whether it be me or one of the other first grade teachers. You will see us talk about this with you a lot. It's called the 5-finger retell, talking about setting, characters, problems, solution, and events. Okay, so if you can read a story, it's important that you should be able to answer the 5 important parts to show that you understand the story very well. Okay, I want you to think about this today, what Ms. Clemens went over with you to help you do your activity in your packet this week. You're going to read a story or have someone in your family read it to you, and then you're going to draw your characters and write it if you can. Your setting, you're going to draw that and write it if you can. And then you're going to think about your events that happen. And you're going to draw what happened from the beginning, middle to end for your events and your details that tell about your events in your pictures. So think about that as you do your activity. Okay, and you can rewatch this video if you need to help you as well. If you need help, please let me know or one of your other teachers know, and we'll be happy to help you so that you understand better, okay? Just send us a message on Dojo and we'll be there to help you. Hope you guys have a good day, and we'll see you soon. Bye, guys.